If anybody believes that, I feel bad for you. Welcome to Geisinger Unfiltered. We are on a bunch of platforms now, X and Facebook and YouTube, of course. And we are on Apple Music and Spotify. Check us out there. Like and subscribe down below. Let's waste no time. We are, at the end of this episode, going to talk about the UK's strange, bizarre, Orwellian arresting people for tweets and Facebook posts. That's happening right now in the UK. That's the hot buzz. Well, what would that have to? Why would we talk about that at the end of something called Project Looking Glass? What's Project Looking Glass? Well, if the elites could see into the future somehow, bizarrely enough, nothing's too bizarre for Geisinger Unfiltered, but if they could see into the future and it didn't look like it was going to go well for them, perhaps they would try to do some Orwellian constructs in order to keep their empire, keep their power seat, right? So I think part of what's brought us to today is something called Project Looking Glass that was a secret black project that happened long ago. Oh, it's completely shut down now. It's shut down because they did not like looking into the future. They did not like what they were seeing. Let's dive into it. What is Project Looking Glass? It's a secret program tied to Area 51. Of course, Area 51 and S4 use advanced tech to see probable futures, right? A time viewer. I know, crazy, isn't it? We've talked about Stranger Things on here. Blending reverse engineered alien tech, quantum effects, and exotic optics. Reverse engineered alien tech. Okay. Most of people who'll be tuning into me are going to go, yeah, that again, right? I mean, please check out our episode on crash retrievals, alien, quote unquote, crash craft retrievals, because now we've got the likes of Jake Barber saying a whistleblower, was in massive crash retrieval programs. That goes all the way back to Colonel Corso, the book Day After Roswell. This is detailed in our crashed craft episode. Check it out. Colonel Corso was tasked with in Army R&D with reverse engineering some of the craft that were already crashing, Roswell and a bunch of others. And from that, we got microchips and we got fiber optics and flak jackets and body armor and night vision, of course, because you could look into these craft, even though this was night. Carter, want to bring up this illustration. I illustrated this, actually. I have hidden talents. I created this image. Not AI either. Glitchy would be offended by that, but I did this. But you could look into a craft like this, and even though it was nighttime, it could be completely daylight out of the viewers. So we got this tech from Crashed Craft. Now, you please, in that episode, understand that I divulge my Trojan horse theory in that episode. How, if they are traveling back in time, as a lot of these entities say that they are, or across galaxies, they can't manage to go around our clouds or lightning storms here. They crash, and in mass. Enough to the point where one whistleblower said that there is so many crash craft, it's filling up football field-sized areas in Mongolia if you zoom in to see them. Funny how all of this stuff's crashing, and then we get all this technology from them, like what we're going to get into here, like Looking Glass, right? So out of these crash retrieval programs that have started way long ago, probably 1950, they discovered there's not propulsion system in some of these saucer craft, right? Well, how are they moving? Well, there's some sort of field that they're generating on the outside of it that's like a vacuum field. It's almost like pulling the craft into the future, into its next step of its existence, right? So it constantly is putting this field, and wherever you put that field on the side of the craft is where the thing is going to go because it's pulling it there, right? So when this stuff gets taken to S4, just funny enough, it's just right into our hands, right? And then it goes right to S4. This type of tech is implemented. Why don't we bring on Glitchy McBoltface? Let me introduce him. So Glitchy is our resident AI sidekick, and it is nice to hear what AI is thinking about some of these topics. Sometimes he can sum up stuff we don't know. And why do we have them? Well, it's good to keep your friends close and your enemies closer, right? Glitchy, can you briefly explain what Project Looking Glass is and this field that they found around the craft, what it did with time, and how they were going to use it in Looking Glass?
Absolutely, Darren. So let me sum it up for you, glitchy style. Project Looking Glass is basically this idea that certain secretive folks were working on some tech that could let them glimpse into different timelines or potential futures. And the trick up their sleeve was supposedly understanding this weird field around certain advanced crafts. This field would manipulate time and space, almost like creating a bubble that lets you see or move through time differently. In other words, they hope to use this concept to peek at what might happen in the future and maybe change outcomes. So there you go.
All right, I'm cutting him off. He's a good guy, but sometimes he drones on a little bit long. Now, okay, so you don't have to take this from me. So, Carter, we got a clip of the Bob Lazar on Joe Rogan mentioning this so that people get some reference. This isn't just Darren Geisinger in the middle of the Midwest talking about some obscure thing. This is well known. Can you bring up the clip with Bob Lazar now, Carter, and let him? It's a short clip.
Project Looking Glass had to do with time, any effects of time in the craft. Now, I don't think we're not talking about making a time machine like in science fiction, but we're talking about, small distortions, intentional distortions of time and how that can be used.
That's pretty good. So here, that's Bob Lazar. So okay, so what you're getting is that any little bit of tech that you could get, there could be a sliver, a micron of this tech, and under S4 Area 51, they are going to exploit it to its absolute nth degree, and that's what they did. What is this? I mean, I don't know if this is good for those techies that are tuning in, want a little bit more technical detail. So what Lazar does talk about a little bit more on that is an Einstein-Rosen bridge, and I think most people probably know this from the Avengers movies. The Tesseract or whatever opens one, and that's where we get this awesome scene where, doesn't it open up a big hole in the sky where all these alien things start flooding in, and if it wasn't for Iron Man flying up and blowing up something up there to close it, we would be in deep trouble. So an Einstein-Rosen bridge is lets you travel from one region of the universe to another, because obviously those aliens weren't right out there. It was a tunnel, right, to that. Think of it as space-time is like a flat sheet of paper, I heard. So if you take a flat sheet of paper and you poke a hole through it with a pencil, and then you fold it over, and then you poke another hole, it's like a bridge like that, right? So that is important, because as our next, if we're going to go on to the next slide with this interesting looking character here, Dan Burrish, Looking Glass's most prominent whistleblower. So he is all over YouTube. So if you want to look up Dan Burrish and hear what he has to say, he has quite a lot to say on Looking Glass. When I bring up these whistleblowers, I have no idea of their past and their personal life, because some of them are a little sketchy. You hear about different things. We'll get into that in a minute. I'm just kind of going on, do they sound like they're telling the truth? What do they say? And can we connect the dots to make sense of this? Does this exist? I mean, I hear myself talking about this. We're talking about lizard people under the ground and time distortion materials. So we're all just trying to make sense of it. And how would it lead us to UK censoring free speech, right? Well, I'm going to tell you in a minute, because they're looking forward to a time they don't care for. Anyways, so he was part of the infamous Majestic 12, what Dan Burrish says, and we'll describe them in a minute, but he describes them as mini wormholes capable of creating temporal time distortions inside highly stable containment fields. Why does it have to be really stable? You can go on to the next thing there that shows just kind of an illustration of Looking Glass and then like a Stargate thing, because I guess they're using this element 115 found in the Kingsman, Arizona crash. I mean, these crash retrievals are named by the areas in which there's so many of them. Again, go to my episode, The Trojan Horse Theory. It will make sense. They want us to have this tech. Powers that be are making it look like they're crashes. So they just want us to have this. Anyway, so Burrish claimed that they put a volunteer in once into the Looking Glass to see if you could literally use it to travel forwards in time. And it didn't. It was fatal and it was brutal, and he doesn't like to talk about it, which begs the whole Philadelphia experiment with the ship and the disaster that happened there, which was a few years earlier, which makes me wonder about the dates and the tech involved in the Philadelphia experiment. But Let's just move along. So he says this 115, they found it in a crashed craft. The looking glass would not function without it, but it was very dangerous. So they had to build a device to which it could be used, but it does do gravitational, and I use that word carefully, distortion, and this backwards and forwards looking at time. I am going to rabbit trail here because it's my show and I'm allowed. And if you start digging into Burrish, one of the things that he says, he was a microbiologist. So why would a microbiologist end up involved with looking glass? Let me be succinct with this. He was brought on to S4 to have contact with an alien entity known as J-Rod, a small gray who obviously was dying. And he was there to take samples from J-Rod. This is supposed to be an actual photo of the alien entity known as J-Rod, or the biological, as the new term that they're doing. So we get away from the word alien. Anyway, he was overseeing J-Rod and taking samples and trying to figure out why he was dying, and got so close with J-Rod because J-Rod can do what's that thing where you take, Carter, what's it when you talk to each other with your mind? What is it? Telepathy. Thank you. So he's telepathic, and they grow close. Well, there was these treaties going on with the future being J-Rod is 52,000 years in the future. His race, they've come back humans, and they're trying to figure out whether genetics went wrong. And Burrish becomes so close with J-Rod that he becomes involved in what they call treaties. Treaties because there's these abductions happening by these grays, these factions, and they're trying to control them. But they say they're just trying to study genetics to figure out where their race went wrong. Anyway, these rabbit holes. So Burrish becomes close with these treaties with J-Rod, and then because they start to dig into what is going on with humanity in the future, they get into looking glass to try to figure out what the future is going to bring, and that's how Burrish gets involved in looking glass. I'm just going to tell you that all of my research, my contacts are telling me they could tell him anything. They told Burrish that this was an ET. My goodness, this is probably some sort of hybrid that they created using the tall reptilians and human genetics to create something in the middle, or anything else, any derivative, and just told Burrish, hey, this is an ET. He sits down, starts taking samples, and they told him it is. So he thinks it is. And these things do nothing but lie. So if it said we're from 52,000 years in the future and we have to abduct people because of that, then that's what Burrish is going to believe. Please, I know that I'm going fast, but please track with all that. It's all a lie. Don't trust anything. Just because Burrish said that this was an ET, I don't think it's an ET. I think it's because they crash these craft and they have to have believable looking pilots there as biologicals or half dead or whatever. And they plant them there or put them in the craft first and then crash it. Anyways, so we can just go on. We don't have to have that. So to finish up this thought before we go fully back on looking glass, I just think it's kind of interesting that they're painting and they left Burrish alive, didn't suicide him, because he's spreading the rumor that there are ETs. He's spreading the rumor that there's outer space and space travel, and that in the future, human genetics could get messed up if we don't do A, B, and C to make sure we don't. And we're going to get to this at the end. But again, in other episodes, the alien deception coming, the seed of the serpent, that kind of thing. The book of Daniel says they will mix their seed with the seed of man, and it will not stick, just like iron doesn't stick with clay. So putting these breadcrumbs, listen to me, audience, putting breadcrumbs out there in whatever form that our genetics are going to go off the rails and we're going to turn into that little gray blob if we don't make sure our genetics are right, is going to be the card that they are going to eventually play to make sure we upgrade our genetics so that doesn't happen at the very right time. And I have described that in other episodes when that's going to be. That'll probably be with their seed because they're going to be perfect, beautiful Pleiadian types. I don't know if you put that picture, of the Pleiadians, and you can almost hear the aura around them, right? I'm like, wow. So we're all dying of these diseases, these pestilences that were released upon the earth on purpose. And now we might have to upgrade our genetics so we don't become like the short grays. Goodness. Let's get back to looking glass. I will try to wrap all of this together in one neat thought at the end. I know you guys can follow this, though. All right, so insiders in the program often refer to Looking Glass, the time-seeing device, as the machine we were never supposed to build. Why? Because as they peered into the future, everything was bad and scary. There wasn't a lot of bright stuff coming. Bleak war. Our genetics are gonna go off kilter. We're gonna end up like the Greys. There's something like they called it the convergent timeline paradox. Ooh, that sounds like there's a movie for that. So after they started to see into this, the powers that be, the elite, started to get this data back. Okay, we've made this device Looking Glass. We're looking into the future. It don't look good. So they started to try to interfere and tweak things. I guess it's possible timelines. Well, we can do this or we can do that, and will it change? And then re-look into Looking Glass. And they would get people who are more psychically oriented to do this and get them reports back on, okay, did that help? And as you know, I know a lot of Christians tune into me, and you're not going to be surprised by any of this because don't we read the end of the book? We know where things are going. It's going to get really, really dark before it gets light again. So I'm not going to go into Majestic 12. Things got so scary that not only did the Majestic 12 disband in like the early 2000s, but so did Looking Glass. They didn't want people looking in Looking Glass anymore. Majestic 12 or S4 or whatever, because I think we're going to get into it next. But one thing that I think, since I mentioned Avengers before in the Tesseract, the cube thing, is Bursch talks a lot about the Yellow Book, which is a controversial little device, this little yellow cube that was gifted to us by the aliens to also see into the future. And it was gifted to the Eisenhower administration during one of the treaties. Remember have you heard the Greada Treaty theory? Oh, that's another episode, Carter, where Eisenhower had emergency dentistry in California and met with an alien race to go over treaties. But then another alien race chimed in and said, they're our enemies. Don't meet with them. We'll do a better one for you, but you got to get rid of your nuclear devices. That was that theory. But Eisenhower made a treaty with the Greys and not the Pleiadians, right? Or whatever. That'll come back on us. See, we told you so, the Pleiadians will say eventually. But this Yellow Book, this yellow cube, I don't know, maybe Glitchy can do. This is unscripted. So I have no idea what Glitchy McBoltface is about to say. Let's see if he knows what Glitch. I'm talking about Yellow Book right now. The little yellow cube that was supposed to be gifted to the Eisenhower administration. I don't want to give you too much. What do you know that as?
The good old Yellow Book, or sometimes called the Little Yellow Cube. That's one of those classic pieces of UFO lore. Supposedly, it was this alien device offered to the Eisenhower administration that could show vivid holographic visions of past and future events. Basically, it's like a little cube that can spill all sorts of temporal secrets and show you what right happened. So yeah, that's the gist of what the Yellow Book or the Little Yellow Cube is known as.
Okay, but what was here, I'm going to test you, Glitch. What was the flaw in it that wasn't like Looking Glass? This had a flaw in it that they had to watch out for. Do you know what that is?
Oh, testing glitchy, huh? All right, let's dive in. So the Little Yellow Book, or Cube, had a pretty big caveat. Unlike something like Project Looking Glass that might let you see various possible futures, the flaw with the Yellow Book was that it supposedly showed you a version of the future that was kind of locked to the perspective of the person viewing it. In other words, it wasn't showing a guaranteed outcome. It was influenced by whoever was looking into it. So they had to be really cautious because it could lead to misinterpretations or show a future that was kind of biased by the observer's own expectations. So that was the big flaw.
Cool. Glitch. You're on fire. It is interesting to find out what does it really know? I mean, I don't try to describe too much, so I lead him. But he's right in that. So this Yellow Book that came out, I'm fascinated by this because it's almost like as they started to get disenchanted with Looking Glass, seeing into the future, they're like, just give them this too, because this will cut right to it. They don't have to do their own tech. This will show them right away. It's like they're scheming and they're giving us stuff for our own detriment. Think about the Book of Enoch. Think about the secrets that the Watchers, the extra dimensionals were teaching mankind that the Creator was so furious about. Warfare? weapons making, seduction, psychedelics, and just brings us to today. That's why you have to look up my Trojan horse theory, because it's like, let's give them a time-looking device, a crystal ball, but it will warp, depends on who's using it, and then we'll put the person that we want. It's nefarious. It's this is why ancient texts like the Bible say that the other side, our enemies, are the father of lies. It's nothing but lies. Lies. And so all of this, I'm sure the Yellow Book was sniffed out as lies immediately. Okay, the next moving around, by 2005, MJ12 and Looking Glass was supposed to have totally disbanded and dismantled. Why? Well, they didn't like the future that it kept showing them. No matter how they were going back to it, it was not showing a good thing. It was showing, well, we're going to get into it. Bill Wood. Let me explain. Bill Wood is on the internet as well. YouTube. You can look him up. I think, and this picture of him here at this cafe is very interesting. Watch that part, because as he's sitting there and talking to the interviewer, can you bring up this photo with the American flag behind it, Carter? I know I'm asking you to do 7 things at once. I don't buy you, 1,000 cables that are tangled all over here for you to do one thing at once. You have to do multiple things with all these cables. Can't even hardly move in here. Anyway, so this picture, watch this one on YouTube. They can't fake this. There must be 10 to 20 helicopters that buzz their building while he's trying to talk to her. It's very disconcerting. They finally moved the interview because while there's supposed to be inland, there's supposed to be almost no helicopters. They're trying to find them. I swear to you, that's what it seems like. But Bill Wood, and I think that was an assumed name, has a sketchy past. Something with a minor. We won't go into that. And sometimes I think they set people up to try to discredit them. I have no idea. I do know that upon watching his interviews, he seems extremely credible. Claims to be an ex-Navy SEAL with Indigo clearance. He got taken to Area 51 because he was very psychic or had precog abilities. So he ends up, and he can fix all manner of high-tech equipment. So I think what he says, maybe we should watch just a clip of him here. Carter, if you bring that up, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about Bill Wood before we move on.
It's like the Wicked Witch, looking into the, magic mirror and always getting the same answer. Well, if you were always getting the exact opposite of the answer that you wanted, you'd stop talking to the mirror. And that's essentially what happened with Looking Glass, is no longer... Not only did they not want people to use it anymore because they knew it was just going to burp out the same thing, but at the same time, they didn't want anybody else to know what it was saying, I'm sure. Because that information was of a monumental concern when I was in the military about how to prevent this inevitability. Now, at first, I thought it was end of the world. Now I see end of the world as end of their world.
Cut it there. So listen to what he just said. They brought him in, and I'm, we only show a short clip on here. You guys can research this stuff on your own. He could fix... He was in the Tomahawk missile program and was instrumental in how those things hit their target, right? He could fix anything on a warship. He ends up at S4 and he gets into this, and from what he says in other parts of the interview, is like they panic. In a panic, they brought him in to look at Looking Glass because they wanted him to fix it or to find out if it was broken, because he kept showing them that their world was going to end. At first he thought, oh my goodness, it's the end of the world. It's the end of mankind. And that's not exactly what it was showing. It was showing them that the elites lost power, that the control that they had was going to end, and they were trying to figure out a way to get around that. And after they couldn't, no matter what they did, then, and you can bring up this picture. I just grabbed this from anywhere. It ended up, I looked at it right before we came on, and it's the OJ trial. I didn't see that at first, but it's kind of a cool picture. What was the judge's name on that? Oh, was it Judge? Oh, he had a famous name. Gosh, Carter, is this before your time? How old were you with the OJ trial?
I probably wasn't born yet.
Oh, come on. He say he's not born for the OJ trial. I'm not that old, am I? Now, listen. So why did I pick this picture? It's just like the elites pictured going that they were going to be brought to justice. This is not a great picture because OJ wasn't brought to justice. The glove didn't fit, so they had to acquit, apparently. Now, listen, keeping back on a serious note. So why 2012, who knows if Carter was born for that even, was such a big deal? Because I guess the Mayan civilization and maybe other civilizations in their calendars had predicted that 2012 was going to be the end of the world. Well, that actually came into Looking Glass. I think Bill Wood and maybe a couple other whistleblowers say that it was a key date because as they were using Looking Glass, they could manipulate the outcomes of our reality, our matrix, up until the year 2012. But after that, they couldn't change things anymore. And that's what really threw them. And it's probably why they brought in other experts to say, something's not right here because we can manipulate, we can change things, but not after 2012. And digging into this rabbit hole, I actually got into some pretty crazy things that my good friend Timothy Alberino started to talk about at NEFCON in this summer in Bozeman, Montana at the end of June, which is we are entering the age of Aquarius. I hope as a traditional Christian believer, that actually makes your skin kind of crawl a little bit, because I have news for you. It's actually biblical and it's a great thing. And it's how God warns his people. And Tim blows this up at NEFCON. If he has this online, join Timothy Alberino's private community. He probably has his whole talk from NEFCON then. You've got to see that all of the time clock with the stars is all actually from the creator, and it's only malicious forces that have warped that into the horoscope and made Christian believers, shy away from that, when it's God's warning device to say that as we enter the age of Aquarius, that cataclysm and great change is coming. And I really just think this Mayan calendar, however it worked, it was the Mesoamerican long count calendar. Please, that's above my pay grade. However that worked, it showed that after a certain amount of time, we were entering a new age. David Knight's speech. I happened to be there for this speech. That's just an older picture of him. In True Legends, what do we call that? A conference in Branson, Missouri. We did 17, 18, 19 before the epidemic hit. And I was in 2018 where David Knight did this speech on the 72-year upheaval, and that it goes through the fourth turning is coming in the late 20s, the late 1920s. And if you look back traditionally in history, that these upheavals come in regular cycles. Unfortunately for us, fortunately, we have a couple more years yet, don't we? Because currently, as I'm talking to you, it's 2025. Believe me, I think by 2028, 29, we should all be on our homestead with a cow and a couple chickens and a smart pump on a well. Because as David Knight and the Mayan calendar and what Looking Glass was all doing was showing that these upheavals come in cycles, and they wanted to not have it come. They're making billions of dollars, trillions of dollars off the useless eaters of the world, right? So they bring in the likes of Bill Wood to say, hey, this alien tech, can you make it see a difference? We want to avoid this. We want to avoid the fourth turning, or we want to avoid the age of Aquarius. Well, they can't. And so after a certain point, they just couldn't anymore. So here the next slide is just a famous saying from Solomon, which is what has been will be again, what has been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. And you look at if you dig into the Tartarian conspiracy theory about the end of civilizations and the start of new, but this just keeps going on and on and on. I mean, you got the American Civil War, you've got the revolution in Russia, and if you look on a timeline, if you just take like a belt out in front of you and you mark when these things happen, it's pretty regular intervals. And unfortunately, the end of the 2020s is coming up with another one. So if the elites, this is bottom line. I hope I'm not all over the board, but I know that my audience is bright, and you're following that. If the elites can foresee an awakening reset, wouldn't they attempt to change it? That's what Bill Wood just said. They said it was the end of the world, but it was the end of their world. So this drawing is just crazy. what is that name in the corner? Oh, Schratt. Schratt was at a True Legends too. He was at Branson in 2019. I had the pleasure of meeting Schratt. And so like, this is literally a diagram of the way Looking Glass was and how they could see. Do you think this is made up? Do you think someone just sketched this, that someone didn't actually see this and use this? I'm sorry. I have a BS meter that's pretty sensitive. This is real. They did this. This happened. Everything I've just told you, I'm trying to give you the best that I can to point us to what is happening now, which if you go on to the next slide, I think it's really the crux of the matter as we near the end of this Geisinger Unfiltered episode. They must stop a peasant revolution at all costs. They don't want the French Revolution. They don't want to be hauled out into the streets. You know, they've said, let them eat cake, let them eat insect protein, as Bill Gates is investing in all these insect protein places. And they saw themselves getting brought to justice. I don't like it. And they're like, wait. So we're going to do these things. And we're going to buy up all the farmland. We're going to introduce insect protein. We're going to come up with a totalitarian means of surveillance. That'll save us, right? No, they're building bunkers as fast as they can possibly to get out of there because maybe they see that it cannot be stopped. I think, and it's in my books, Zero Gs. You can find these on Amazon, Darren Geisinger, Zero Gs. I postulate, even in the first book, I say that since it's happening in 2035, there's a death of Hollywood. There is no more Hollywood, and all the politicians are mostly gone. Do you know why? Because at this great awakening that's going to happen in the age of Aquarius, after some turmoil, that they're not going to be able to get around it. It's going to come out. We're trying to get to the bottom of the Epstein list, right? We're trying to do this, but I think Looking Glass sees that they can't stop it. So they're going to have to throw a lot of rich and famous people under the bus to get to send off their trail. So that's why in Zero Gs, I say there's the death of Hollywood. They're going back to a more communist, socialistic society where being rich and famous is really frowned upon because they have to. They have to say, hey, we can't stop this. Give them these people. Give them these actors and politicians because they're red-handed. For you know it. Everybody out there watching this knows that the politicians and actors in Hollywood, there's a big blood drop right next to the Hollywood freaking sign out there telling you what's going on out there. I didn't even know that. Like you can see this big blood droplet statue. Maybe Carter will put this image. I didn't get it. They are telling you because as I just heard, Satanists, Luciferians believe that they have to tell you what they're going to do before they do it. So they put a big blood drop right there by the Hollywood sign. And this is the meaning of Hollywood. We can't even go there. On point, they're going to have to throw people under the bus because there's no way to get around it. We're going to awaken. They've seen it in Looking Glass, and they're going to have to sacrifice some of their own to stay clean. Now, the next image there I think is fascinating. If you haven't heard this, please. Let's pause for a moment and think about what this means. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. And it just keeps going around and around. Isn't this the cycle of Solomon? Where are we at in this timeline? Go to okay, so there's an Instagram clip there. I don't know how Carter wants to edit this in, but you can look at this image first before he places this clip. I just Googled rugged pioneer people, right? I just Googled that and found that image. And on the right is what's going on in the UK right now. Both the arresters and the arrested. Where do you think we are with the weak men, strong men timeline? If you look at these two pictures, goodness gracious, are we in trouble? It doesn't take a slide rule to figure out that David Knight is right or Timothy Alberino is right in their findings that the age of Aquarius is coming and it's going to create upheaval. Look at what we've become. Carter, if you want to play that Instagram clip, I just saw this last night of someone getting arrested in the middle of the night in the UK for a tweet.
Unfortunately.
You're taking me to Harrogate in the middle of the night over a tweet?
I am, unfortunately.
Is this what you signed up the police to do?
This is my role. I'm trying to be
the wrong thing.
So if there's stuff you'd like to gather, I'm more than willing to allow you to gather some sort of stuff like medication, any numbers you need.
My friend, you've
You
said the
join the
wrong
police to
thing,
go
and
and
now I'm
arrest
going to
people at night for people
incarcerate you.
tweets
I got
online.
enough of that. I cannot take it. Nonsense. Shut up. Shut it off. Look at this image. Bring up this image again of weak men, strong men, the cycle, and this image here of where we're at. Look, I had a homestead. I had a 50-acre homestead through divorce and through calamity myself. I have to start over, and I have a plan. I do. I'm gathering it back, and I really want to get it done before 2028 or 2029, because what you just saw is they're arresting people in the middle of the night for tweets, for Facebook posts. And this is all over the news right now. The digital ID is being unfolded right now in the UK. RFK, I'm gonna comment on some of those clips, is railing about it right now. The good news is if you're an American right now and you're out there listening to me and you're in America, we can watch the UK right now with wide eyes. They're doing it. Did anybody read 1984? They are doing it. And it gives us time to avoid it. Why RFK has not been shot to death already, I don't know, because they want him dead. I'm sure they want him dead. Hopefully he's under constant 24-hour guard. I leave it to Glitchy and Carter to guard me, which puts me in jeopardy all the time. But let's wrap up this episode. So I think that they are going to see, they're going to see that these steps of arresting people in the middle of the night for tweets is going to backfire. Are these the last ditch efforts of Project Looking Glass that the elites are putting in place? I don't know. Well, it looks like our power is going to get upended. What do you think we should do? Well, I think we should start arresting people for Facebook posts. This is not going to work. This is only got to make people get strong and to fight for their rights. I know UK might not make it, but I'd be surprised if Americans can't see this and avoid it. Then I feel bad for all of us. Okay, so the big red button. I often will talk about the big red button of doom, and I want to tell it to the Geisinger Unfiltered audience. Don't think that with AI and everything else they're gathering that someone doesn't have their finger right on this button. That if their plan does not give the results that they're hoping for, that they're going to push this to make people not be thinking about Looking Glass or tweets or anything else but food and water. That's their last ditch effort. So someone's finger is always over the top of that, and I'm sure they are trying to figure out a way to avoid pushing this because they're making a bunch of money and they want to hold their power and they don't want to go into their underground bunkers. So I would just say this is that where I go with this whole thing in 0 Gs and what started at the beginning of this, and I mentioned the book of Daniel, is that they will mix their seed with the seed of men. What I think is going to happen is they're going to push the big red button. Chaos is going to envelop the world. And out of that, alien disclosure is going to come where they say, we're not alone. They're here. And it's a last resort clause. They're not supposed to interfere, but they are because we were going to extinct ourselves. And now they're here and all of a sudden the lights are coming back on. Hopefully they're hoping that most of the patriots have been killed off during the great upheaval so that they can start their new world order in earnest, right? So again, this points back to the other episodes I've had on this topic of the coming alien deception. If you have not seen part 1 and 2 of that, watch that. But this is the thing that is maybe most critical. The reason I wrote the novel series 0 Gs that you can find on Amazon is what is the mark of the beast? Well, it's just that. It's beastly. And at some point, they are going to say our genetics are off. Look at J-Rod, the alien. We studied him at S4. He's disintegrating, and this is our future timeline, and we know who your real enemies are. It's the tall grays from the Reticuli constellation. And these beautiful Pleiadians or Nordics or whatever they're going to be are going to mix their seed with the seed of men. And that is the last great kingdom. If you want to get biblical, there's this vision of Nebuchadnezzar's statue. The head is a certain thing, the chest, and the last is the feet. It is the last kingdom. It would mix all of this up if this iron mixed with clay and they will mix their seed and seed with men was somewhere else in the statue, right? In the waist? The chest. No, it's the feet. And it says the feet is the final great kingdom on earth that gets smashed by the rock, the rock that returns and smashes it. So I just want to pose this question to the audience. What do you think Project Looking Glass was used for? Well, to what purpose? And is what we're seeing in the UK with the digital ID? You cannot work without the digital ID. Is this just a data gathering experiment to see the pushback? Did the elites see this coming, the big revolution coming using Looking Glass? Comment below, and let's get this word out to as many people as possible. Thanks for joining.